There is a meta forming that is extremely difficult to beat, and players have been struggling against parts of this meta for a very long time. The turtle meta, or the double sentinel meta, is incredibly powerful. And with the new sentinel Vyse coming around the corner, this composition is getting more powerful and gonna be more played. And players across all ranks are still losing to simple amounts of sentinel utility, like Cypher trips or Killjoy setups. We gotta break down exactly how you can beat sentinels and beat this turtle meta, and we gotta kick it off with Cypher as a character. We do need to talk about Cypher because he's become much more powerful in the meta, seeing a lot of play, especially on maps like Sunset, where he has a trip on A where you cannot shoot it unless you walk into it. And this can be incredibly frustrating to deal with, especially if your team doesn't have utility to deal with the trips. So if you have a Raze or a Sova, this could be really nice to be able to just break the trips and then you can execute on the site. But in the chaotic nature of ranked, your teammates might not do this at all, so you got to calm to them and they might not listen, or you might have a composition that just doesn't have the means to deal with the Cypher trip. So in that case, what can you do to counteract Cypher's strong utility? You really need to understand that Sentinels fundamentally punish over aggression. They punish a lack of control over the map as a whole as well. So if you have control of more angles, it's a lot easier to cover for your teammates when they enter on site, they get tripped, or you can even control spaces where enemies would be playing off their own sets of utility. So what does this mean? This means that you should make a concentrated effort to control mid a lot of the times on maps where Cypher setups are strong. In some of the lower elos, people will see a Cypher or Killjoy setup, not know how to deal with it, and be like, let's just go to the other site. But enemies can stack that other site, and it's too much value for an opponent to be able to shut off a complete separate site with one singular character setup. But there's actually something else that you need if you want to deal with some of these slower sentinel setups, and it's actually the appropriate amount of patience. And I know this is going to be the really hardest part, but if you can identify where pieces of utility are, you can slowly creep up and take control of other areas of the map, and then when you're ready, you execute rapidly and cover for each other with the plays off of the trips, and also helping your teammates get out of trips. That could be the golden recipe to break apart a really tightly held sentinel setup. And make no mistake, whether it's Cypher or Killjoy, oftentimes the entire game changes if a team has shown they can beat through sentinel utility. If you can never win when you push a sentinel and you always go the other site, it puts your team at a huge disadvantage. But the second you break through a sentinel setup, you still cap a point a sentinel was on. Now the sentinel will need more help on that point. The other site won't be as stacked. Your executes onto that site will be better, and the entire game could shift in your favor. That being said, the way to really leverage this is by reading how the game is going to play, knowing where enemies are rotating, knowing exactly what is in your opponent's mind. These are things that you can practice and learn by analyzing pros and improving your game sense. And on SkillCapped, our wall hacks course is the perfect course for you if you want to level up that mindset and quickly be able to know where enemies are without even seeing them. Knowing exactly how players are going to respond to certain types of utility, certain types of pushes, and how you can make the best decisions shutting them down every single time. And we offer a money back guarantee, so if you don't climb, you don't pay. So check it out right now in the links down below, risk-free, and let's get back into the video. Now, Killjoy can be a little bit different to interact with than Cypher, because while Cypher has some of these really powerful trips that can't be interacted with in a very simple way, Killjoy can be, but it's almost always going to cost you something. Whether that's armor, whether that's time, whether that's information, dealing with a Killjoy setup can be a rather difficult thing. However, it's important to understand that it is vital for you to meet Killjoy utility head on instead of avoiding it and just hitting the other site for many of the reasons we already mentioned. If you know for a fact that an enemy has a Killjoy turret set up on a certain location, spending the time at the start of almost every single round with multiple people holding and clearing these turrets can give the enemy a lot less information about where you are and where you're set up at. Even if you do not plan to hit the site, in fact, especially if you do not plan to hit the site the Killjoy is on, shutting down the utility forces rotation and will set you up better for later on in the round. Like, as an example, let's say you're playing on Ascent, the Killjoy is set up on B, you go, you destroy the turret, you spray, you kill some of her utility that is down lane, and then you rotate off and the game plays out normal. You still have a lot of time in the clock. Maybe you eventually execute onto A, but the fight gets scrappy. You trade out. You're down to like one person. They grab the spike, they rotate, and now there's less utility to play around on that site. They don't have to play around these things, and when they did play around these things, they did it with their team, and they spent effort and time into destroying the Killjoy setup early, because the core thing that you need to understand about these Sentinel characters is all of their power is in these setups. They don't have great retake ability. They don't have flashes. They don't have things that can isolate duels. They have stall-based utility that is going to control space and slow down the pace of play. But if you as a team can deal with these things together, like 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, killing a Killjoy turret, no one's going to take hardly any damage. You're going to be able to kill it very quickly. And then it forces the enemy to play in a fundamentally different way tactically. And it's important that you go through these motions. It's important that you don't get lazy with your initial defaulting phase. I would say like the first 10 to 20 seconds of every single round should be spent dealing with Sentinel utility if possible. It's super, super important, and it's something that a lot of people become too lazy to do, but then will consistently walk into Sentinel setups, walk down lane, and get freaking destroyed by Sentinel utility, and basically lose the game on paper, not to anyone shooting you, not to anyone outplaying you. Someone just has a setup that is an obvious setup that they learned one time and they copied every single time, and you're losing to the same setup over and over again without ever really getting outplayed. You're basically losing to yourself. Now, there are a lot of double Sentinel compositions seeing play, most notably Cypher, Deadlock on Abyss, and with Vyse coming around the corner, we're going to see a lot more of these types of compositions that are set on controlling hard space. And similar to the suggestions I give you on Cypher and Killjoy, it's going to require diligence, spending time and trading pieces of utility to deal with something. Like if you have to flash in order to shoot some pieces of utility, shut down some pieces of utility, oftentimes it's worth it. Trading their resources for yours is going to benefit you in the neutral the majority of the time and allow you to actually get a chance at fighting these people with your guns and rather just dying without being able to fight back. On top of that, control of mid or control of other angles is incredibly important for dealing with Sentinels across the board. If you fight in a very linear way, in a linear direction, it's a lot easier for them to shut down and control you. But if they have to worry about all these different angles, they either have to split the power of their setup to deal with multiple different lanes of you attacking them, which means it's easier to break through any given side, or they have to change their positioning to be a lot more passive so it's harder for them to play off their utility in an aggressive way and shoot you and shut you down. Now, in summary, these are the things you need to know to deal with Sentinel utility and counter turtle meta. You need to spend utility to destroy enemy utility. Don't try to deal with every single one of these things blind and just hope that that's enough to deal with a lot of this utility. If you need to invest utility, flashes, darts, whatever you need in order to actually destroy utility, it's worth it. Deal with the utility as a team and try to communicate about dealing with utility as a team before you do any other plans you have. You need to fight for control of multiple areas of the map so that pieces of utility are weaker, the setups are more split, and you can actually pressure out these Sentinels more and show the enemy that you are not afraid of committing to sites that they have a strong setup with a Sentinel in. And the last thing you need to know is that Sentinels are fundamentally weak to retakes. If you could put them in a situation where they have to retake, you already put yourself in a huge advantage. So if that means that you exhausted all their utility and you exhausted all of your utility, but you have control of an area, them trying to retake that area is going to be way more difficult for them to do, which gives you a huge advantage. But these are the big tips that I have for you if you want to deal with the turtle meta and you want to stop losing to Sentinel utility. But if you have any questions, definitely let us know in the comments down below. And before we wrap this up, let me tell you a little bit more about SkillCapped. So we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's like a gym membership guaranteeing you'll get ripped. Your local gym would go bust if they offered that. Not us. We've offered this for years because our service really works. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium Valorant guides on the internet. We add new courses every month with over 1,000 guides curated into 50 courses no one can compare. We also have a direct line of communication with subscribers in our Discord so that you can get connected immediately to some of the best players in the game who will respond to any and all questions asked. Sign up today for as little as $6.99 a month if you are serious about improving. So that's going to be all for this one today. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.